If Rolling Stones, U2 and the likes of Kiss were beginning their careers today, how would you develop those acts into the super acts that they've become, taking into consideration the challenges and the opportunities that today's ecosystem provides?
First thing is, you start off with an act with talent, and that act has to have talent both in writing, if it writes, recording, great songs, great material, and secondly of all, it's got to have a fantastic stage presence. And acts that are starting off have got to be hungry. If they're hungry and they tick all the other boxes, and they're really amazing on stage, then you have to do what the acts of the super acts of today did then when they started. You've got to work the room, you've got to keep working and working and working to eventually you get discovered. It is not that there isn't great talent out there, and it not that there isn't great potential new supergroups out there. The problem is that the current model and the current mode that we live with, both in the media and within the established recording industry, is they want the answers too quickly. And if you look back at all the super bands that have come through and maintained their level, they worked and worked and worked till they started to build up a live following and then a recording following, and they kept that and they kept working and working and working. It doesn't happen overnight.
So Doc, are things different now than they were when Kiss first burst onto the rock scene?
Well, I mean, everything's completely different nowadays, but I mean, I believe that there's the Led Zeppelin that's out there now, and there's Beatles that are sitting out there now, and I just don't think that there's an opportunity at the moment in this climate to have a delivery system to get those people out there. You know, it's very, very difficult to break a new artist, and as they were saying, it's immediate. You know, everything is immediate nowadays, and if it doesn't happen in seconds, it doesn't happen. You can't play a 7-minute single on the radio. There's no spot for that. The King Biscuit Flower Hours and all that stuff don't exist anymore. For us, we try not to look at radio as a factor for artists, because all of our artists, I mean, you know, from Motley Crue, from the beginning of the days of Motley and Bon Jovi and Scorpions and Skids and all the bands that we broke, we never concerned ourselves with radio. It wasn't about radio for us. If we got radio, it was a blessing. So we just pounded it out and started going and playing as much as you can, and play with great bands and become the best in the world. And we always felt if you're the best at what you do, if you write the best songs and you are the best performer, guess what? People came and saw you. They bought your shit.
So Shabs, as a label MD, can you maybe explain to us, you know, what you look at in regards to making that investment in an artist? What is your hope as far as a viable return on that investment?
I think it's the thing, you know, in terms of trying to get a superstar act, you've got to actually, as all these guys have said, you've got to find real talent first. But also, I think the other thing I was going to say is the industry and the view of the label and people's view of the label, what they do, it's got to change. You know, if we're going to develop superstar acts, we have to have models and understanding about our business and the artist. So it's a much more of a partnership. The relationship with us and managers, publishers, agents, promoters has to change. Mutual understanding of wanting to build superstars is what we all want. It favours all our business. We can't necessarily anymore just fund it and then not have a business model that's justifiable, which is where we've got to now, so we have to change it.
If I can pick up on that, I think Shabs is absolutely right, because the problem, and I'm talking from a promoter's perspective, is always the same, that you talk to agents, and some may like you, some may not like you, and they never listen to you. They never listen, or at least to a very large extent, they don't listen what you have to say, what your suggestions are, what you suggest, whether it's ticket prices or venues or whatever you have it. If the team is right, which means respect, which means I choose that person because I trust and I believe that this person can do the job for me, and that people can actually take an open mind and an open word, then it will work. But it only works if everybody works together, and if not, then you can forget about it, because if you're just used as the useful idiot who pays a guarantee to put an act out, then you really don't care too much about the development of your band.
It's great to have a superstar act, but is there a danger of overexposure? And when do you know when to pull back and when to pull forward?
I think this was a point that I was going to try and come on to anyway, so I'm glad you brought it up. But I think certainly from a management perspective, I think because the appetite of the media is so ferocious, and there's so many opportunities to generate a profile on a talented artist, I think if you are not very strategic and not very creative, you take every single possible opportunity that comes your way. But I think that actually, if you're trying to create what I would consider to be a true superstar artist, you need to be very, very protective about their brand. Overexposure and I think there's, online particularly, then the amount of online sites that have said, can I come to so-and-so's house to watch them doing the washing up? I remember when I first started buying records and Bowie records, etc., the thought of David Bowie doing the washing up could never be further from my mind. So it's quite unusual now that media goes into every single aspect of what an artist does, but actually what it does is destroy the myth, and it destroys the brand values of what the manager and the record label and the promoter, and we've all worked incredibly hard to generate. So I think that people should be far more strategic and far more choosy about where and how they should profile and showcase their artists.
As a publisher, Charlie, shouldn't it really be said it's about the superstar song? Because without the song, you don't really have the superstar artist. How are you creating those superstar songs which inevitably create the superstar artist?
I think that's true up to a point, and obviously a huge hit breaks an artist, we all know that, but without that artist, without the live thing, without the charisma, without someone who is special, is different in some way, who has, I hate to say it, the X factor, someone who has that, then the song is nothing. And we all know the stories of songs that have been sitting there, have been up for several artists, and finally someone took it and then made a huge hit out of it. So it does play a part, absolutely, of course it does. In my mind, the best results I've always got is through collaborations. And that's either with the artist or building a team around the artist to create better songs. And that's whether they are purely a performing artist or whether they're a co-writer as well.